Dobar dan, poštovani gledatelji. Danas je naš gost, njemački veleposlanik u Zagrebu, Christian Helbach. Hello, willkommen in unserem Studio. Hello.
Vi ćete njemački, dobro, accent.
And I heard that you speak Croatian a little bit.
Samo malo.
So let's go on in English.
Yes, definitely.
So let's see. Now you've been an ambassador here for a year, a little bit more than a year. At that time, during that time, Croatia has entered the Schengen area, has adopted the euro, and now Croatia is fully integrated into the European Union. How do you see Croatia's position now?
Well,
it's a newest member,
yes.
And yet
youngest.
Yes. Yet fully integrated,
yes.
Almost like founding members.
Yes, which many members of the European Union who have belonged to the European Union for much longer time are not. But let me first say, yes, 1 year in Croatia, and I consider myself a lucky man, because I asked for this position, I got it, which is not normal in our service.
Why did you ask?
Because I wanted to come here.
Why?
And because I like the country, I knew the country, I like the country, I know the region, and it was like the perfect destination for me. And so I asked for it, and normally you don't get what you ask. But this time I got it, so I'm a lucky man, and on top it turns out to be a lot better than I expected, and I expected it to be good, so fantastic.
Before your mandate here, when did you last visit Croatia?
The year before.
Okay, so it didn't change that much during that time.
No, but you know, it makes a difference. I've been coming with my family to Croatia for 15 years, almost every year as a tourist, and it's a lot of a difference being here as a tourist and working in Zagreb. Zagreb, which a city which I barely knew. I was here for professional reasons on 2 or 3 occasions before, but I didn't know it.
You mentioned you know the region quite well. Let's be careful when we use the word region.
Southeast Europe.
Southeast Europe, okay. What did you do? What jobs did you have?
I was posted in my first kind of contact was in 1999 when I was posted to Belgrade, still former Yugoslavia back then, until 2003. A very turbulent, but also very positive experience, because you know I witnessed the fall of Slobodan Milosevic and then the rise of hope, which then came to an abrupt end when Zoran Đinđić was murdered. And later, from 2014 to 2016, I was posted to Sarajevo. And after Sarajevo, 2016 to 2019, I was in the ministry. I was a special envoy for Southeast Europe, Turkey, the EFTA member states, etc.
So the perfect person actually for this job. As I asked you, Croatia, where do you see Croatia now?
I entirely agree. Croatia is in the heart of the processes of European integration, because there are several ones. And I remember in Germany, everyone talks about the European integration, singular. In the region, I remember very often hearing the European integrations, and there's a reason to it. In any case, Croatia is now part of the heart of the European integration, belonging to all these, also now to the Schengen zone and to the Eurozone, which, by the way, congratulations once again. I mean, and it's not. I'm not saying I'm not congratulating Croatia just as a formality. We are glad to have Croatia on board, because it proves that the European Union still is attractive, still is has a future where to go, and also we need partners in the European Union, partners who share values, who share what I see here in Croatia, and again, I've been in the region, and there are differences in other countries here in the region. Croatia has a European vocation, and this is a cultural thing. This has to do with having been always part of the Western kind of hemisphere,
much more
Western
than
Europe,
countries further to the east. What is Croatian influence in the EU? It's hard to judge it from Zagreb, and the perception of people is very often that Brussels or big countries like yours, for example, are writing the rules. And that Croatia has to bow the head and play along. Is that true? What's Croatia? It's a small. It's a fact. It's a small country. But what's the real influence of Croatia?
But it's one of many small countries. Number one. Number two. The rules are not written by Brussels. They are written by member states in cooperation with the European Parliament. So perfectly democratically legitimate. And I'm saying this and I'm stressing this because, there's a certain tendency in member states by parts of the political elites to blame
everything
Brussels.
on Brussels, right?
And one should not be mistaken. It's in the end, it's the member states, it's the European Parliament elected by European citizens, and also the Commission. Yes, but the Commission is not a bureaucratic organization which does whatever it wants. It's always under control of the member states. So there is no way to escaping this reality, and it's actually a positive fact. Now the influence of small member states.
Let's stick to Croatia.
Yes. But generally, I'll come to Croatia. Small member states in general, that that small member states are, when it comes to to the number of members in parliament, but also to votes in the council, they are relatively speaking, overrepresented, right? Which basically means one Croatian vote for the European Parliament weighs heavier than one German vote, because yes, we have more members in parliament, but it's not really representative of the size of the population. Right? This is obviously this is because we come where we come from, a union of sovereign member states, but it's also meant to avoid big ones outvoting small ones very clearly, which is an issue we are very, very conscious about. Now, when it comes to Croatia, our perception is that Croatia is as I said, feels obliged to the fundamental values of the European Union, which unfortunately not everyone in the European Union really is. It is a constructive partner. That's the way we perceive it. Now, we would actually like Croatia to be more proactive in the European Union. And
in which sense?
European Union is facing pretty difficult challenges in many respects. We live a time of transition, and it is not only because of a new geopolitical environment, which has been evidenced only by the Russian aggression against Ukraine, but also climate change and the relative loss of weight and power of the European Union in the world makes it, all these three elements makes it imperative to rethink who we are, where we are, and what our position in this world is, and what we have to do in order to project our interests, our European interests in the world, in order to, and this is what actually the Russian aggression proves, is it's also about protecting our sovereignty and our way of life. Now, in order to get there...
when you say our way of life, then we might come to another topic of migrants, but please go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. But this is why now I think one of the key challenges for the European Union is actually enlargement, right? We have realized, unfortunately, a bit late in the day, I have always advocated enlargement because I was always of the opinion that enlargement and actually integrating mainly the Western Balkans into the European Union is a strategic interest, and it's also about security and internal security in our countries, and I think Croatia knows this better than anyone else. But following the Russian aggression, in our capitals, we, as some say, we woke up to a new reality, and part of this new reality is that we understand how strategically important enlargement actually is. At the same time, we also realize that a European with potentially up to 36 members will have a very hard time staying operational. Already now with 27
we already
members,
know that in the last 10 years we've had three major crises, let's say. The migrant crisis, then health crisis, and now with the war in Ukraine. And apart maybe from the COVID crisis, Europe seemed to, not every country towed the line. Europe has had, when I say Europe, I mean the European Union, has had a problem of having this common foreign policy. There are too many. There are many countries now. There are 27 of us. It is basically difficult to find a compromise because every country has its particular interests. Germany has them too.
But there are ways and means to get there. I mean,
and if we want to have a clear-cut decisions, there is always look at the migrants. Look at what some member states, let's not name it, or let's name them, Hungary, for example, are doing. What can you do?
Let me first say, I mean, interesting. You named three big crises. The migration crisis, which is actually ongoing,
and it's COVID, here to stay.
Yes,
and
exactly,
we need a long-term solution to that.
Exactly. COVID and the Russian aggression. Interestingly, in my perception, the one we had most difficulties with, and where I would say, have failed up until now, is the migrant crisis. The other two, we did, I mean, starting with the Russian aggression, we did a pretty good job. I mean, never ever the European Union has been so united.
Yes, I was hesitant to put it as an example of not going together. But your country was, for example, very often criticized at the beginning of the war in February, of being too slow. And being too calculating.
Not calculating, careful.
Oh.
Big difference.
Okay.
Unless you say being afraid of possible consequences of escalation is calculation. I think it's just not reliance on Russian gas. Absolutely. Interesting thing that we have cut off. And tell me which other country did so. Within a period of 1 year, we have completely cut off Russian gas supplies.
Let's see what can be done to make Europe more united, or easier to make decisions.
Yes, let's leave aside all this. I mean, which crisis we managed better and which not. But we do have issues, and especially in common foreign and security policy. Where and I know that also my colleagues here in Croatia share this kind of frustration from time to time when it comes to certain, for instance, human rights issues within United Nations. It's sometimes extremely difficult to find a common position, and without a common position, we cannot speak up as the European Union. But also look at at enlargement and look at. I mean, I've heard many Croatian colleagues. Being very, very frustrated about what Bulgaria is doing with North Macedonia, right? So
yes, and what Slovenia used to do with Croatia as well, bilateral disputes.
So there is a way out. There is a way out, and the most important thing is to engage constructively in a debate. all those who share this opinion, I think that the Croatian political establishment does share this sense of urgency of changing certain things in order to be not only more operative now, but also able to absorb new member states, right? Remember in the past, there were countries in the European Union who would say, no, first we have to deepen, first we have to restructure and reform, and then we talk about enlargement. Now we have made a big step forward because no one is saying this anymore. Everyone is saying enlargement is a strategic necessity, but we also have to look at institutional reforms. But now you ask what actually it is we can do. I think a couple of days ago, a report by a Franco-German expert group was presented in Brussels, and I think that it was also, the news was picked up also by Croatian media. And its first thing, which is really important to stress here, it is an expert group. It's not the report, which is some 60, 70 pages and contains lots of proposals. Does not reflect the positions of my government, and I'm not here to speak for the French government, but I think it also applies to the French government. These are independent experts, and they were commissioned to do this report so as to get some expert input for a debate, which we think is very important. Now, and there are also between France and Germany, and among the membership, there are many different views and positions on which are actually the key issues. It is about, one of the issues is how we take decisions in common foreign and security policy, with unanimity or with qualified majority. And we're not talking about common foreign and security policy altogether across the board. We're talking about specific issues within common foreign and security policy. Then we talk about the composition of institutions, which is a very, very delicate issue. And I can only tell you, also my government is not really very keen to give up positions in Brussels and so on. But we need to talk about this. And the other issue that is also important is the role and the composition and the mode of election of the European Parliament. We believe that it needs to, the rules need to be harmonized so as to make it more representative. And
are we talking about Spitzenkandidaten again, or?
Not necessarily, but Spitzenkandidaten, this was a kind of how you call this thing you used to walk?
Crutch.
Crutch for something we would actually like something different.
Stick.
Transnational candidate lists and this kind of thing.
But you mentioned something very interesting. Voting.
But there's, sorry, just one more issue, which is of utmost importance and on which actually most member states would agree, including, by the way, Croatia, as far as I know, and that is strengthening the rule of law is absolutely key if we want to enlarge. So these are roughly, the report contains, I don't know, dozens more of suggestions and proposals which need to be debated. And my plea actually is we need to talk about this because I'm afraid that enlargement will be very difficult if it is going to happen at all if we don't find ways to become more operational.
Have we talked about...
Croatia needs to engage in this debate.
So Croatia is staying out of this?
No, I don't know actually. Croatia, I think, has so far... I had many talks about this issue. Croatia hasn't taken the front stage, and maybe it need not take the front stage, but I would clearly appeal to Croatia to engage in this debate, which does not mean saying yes to proposals, but saying no is also not good enough. I think that Croatia, and there are two reasons why I believe that Croatia should engage, three reasons. Number one, because it's a member state. Good enough.
It goes with the territory.
Exactly.
Right?
Number two, we perceive Croatia as a constructive partner which actually respects the fundamental rules.
So,
and number three, maybe the most important one, Croatia has a vital interest in enlargement. No one is as affected by what happens in this neighborship as Croatia is. Not even the other neighbors.
Let's try to simplify this. I'm saying that Germany will not give green light for Bosnia and Herzegovina unless something is done before that.
What do you mean by green light?
For opening the negotiations.
Nothing to do with this.
Nothing.
No.
So it's not a logic. If then. No, it's not. It's not a condition.
But this is exactly what I said. We are not talking about
I said let's simplify it. Let's simplify. Yes. Let's be very clear. So Bosnians' roadmap is not dependent on the institutional changes.
For two reasons. I'm trying to simplify as well. Number one, because as I said, no one now is saying, and it was before, it was not us who were saying first reforms and then enlargement.
Yeah, we know who said that.
And now actually
but he changed it.
The common position is now both things have to happen at the same time. Number one. So there is no this kind of, and secondly, we're talking about a process which will take years. So, and opening negotiations with Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's under debate. But if it happens, it will happen soon. And this is a far longer process. So,
it must start before?
Of course not. So I can tell you more or less how it works.
It's not dependent on that. It's not conditioned upon that.
It will be an issue in several council formations up until the end of the year. And when the December Council, European Council, will look into the Commission's enlargement report, some member states believe that we should have language about what is actually, what are we going to do with institutional reforms. In the best of all cases, we are not overly optimistic, but we're still convinced that
So Germany wants Croatia on board.
Exactly.
In that.
Exactly.
Okay. What else?
I think it would be useful for us, for the European Union, and for Croatia.
Can I ask, what were the reactions from Croatian side?
Various ones.
Really?
Yes.
You talked...
Because, as I said,
doesn't it involve changing the treaties?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. There is, which is actually an important point for us. Every change that does not demand changing the treaties makes life easier.
Yes.
Right? And because changing the treaties means going through ratification by 27 parliaments, and this is, maybe by mid-century we will get over it. So this is certainly not.
And nobody can be sure of the outcome, as we've seen with the United Kingdom.
Exactly. But I can tell you now that my government is going to take an initiative on this specific issue, and very soon.
On the reforms,
and invite for a conference in Berlin at ministerial level. So we actually did a survey, which actually just to try to find out what people think about this, and it was surprisingly positive, I must say. And I believe that this relation is usually, when I came here, people were telling me we enjoyed traditionally good relations and so on. And I said, oh, great, fantastic. This has not been the case in every place I was, but
what's the substance?
It sounds a bit boring, and we need more substance. The substance is actually, let's not sell undervalue what we actually have. We have cooperation in Brussels. Maybe no one sees this because it has become a daily thing. We have very close security cooperation, especially when it comes to police, and it's a success story. I have liaison officers in the embassy who keep telling me, from different branches of police and customs, and they keep telling me, fantastic, this is as if we were working at home.
The relations are now good again. At one point, I think they were a bit stalling, to say the least. But let's see now.
Can we agree on one thing? Yeah. Can we agree on one thing?
Yes.
if you're married, then and if you have an issue, etc., the worst thing you can do is to say, yeah, but you remember a couple of years ago you did this and that. I think that we have to look to the future. We have a very solid basis, which is, let's not forget, people to people.
Actually a good thing, because I said they have improved drastically.
Yes, but not enough in my eyes. And this is the point I want to make, desperately want to make. We, again, I'm told, fantastic, everything brilliant, very important trade partners, German direct investment, everything is here. Tourists, not to forget, and Croatian diaspora in Germany, which is huge. It's almost 500,000 people, right? And really, I wouldn't underestimate what this means for also for human relations. But for me, this isn't good enough. Because I see that there is a lot of space for deeper cooperation in the mutual interest. And I actually wanted, when I thought, what are we going to talk about? I identified 2 points for me.
Good.
One is our partnership within the European Union, where I do see space for further cooperation, for the good of the European Union, and which is actually in our interest. And the other one is, we are living times of change. Everyone keeps repeating this, but one specific feature of these times of change is that we are going through in Germany through a deep energy crisis. And
you basically need new sources of energy, right?
Exactly. But renewable ones, because we are, and actually this energy transition in Germany, there's a huge debate about it. It's too little, it's too late, it's too expensive. But as a matter of fact,
it's so different from a land to land.
Yes, but everything is different from land to land in Germany. But we are making headway, and it's quite impressive, I must say.
Do you think you'll be able to replace the energy?
60% of electricity generation, close to 58 or so, now is already based on renewables, right? And this is without importing anything. And we are very much aware, we are a highly industrialized country with huge energy needs, right? This was our issue in the past. It will be our issue in the future, but we don't want to be dependent again on partners which weaponize energy in order to force us to do this or to do that. So we're looking at new partners, and our choice is renewables. This is why we are investing enormous sums into the development of a new European energy market based on renewables, where green hydrogen will be a very important element, because green hydrogen is kind of a vehicle through which you can transport energy from A to B. And when I came to Croatia, I came from Chile, and Chile is a country which in far less than a decade became from a renewables agnostic to a world champion in renewables. And I came to Croatia, and I somehow my first assessment was, okay, Croatia is a country with a huge potential in renewables, solar, wind, geothermal, but isn't really using, really exploiting this potential. Now we need energy. We will import energy. We will get it. Very clear. And Croatia could become from a net energy importer to a net energy exporter. What does this mean? This means generation of income and wealth. Why not doing it? This is why I believe that we should cooperate in order to integrate Croatia in the emerging European renewables energy market, which means enhancing production or actually using Croatia's potential, producing renewable energies, and eventually transforming them into green hydrogen and transporting it to this market, which is only emerging now. This means a lot of investment, including also in transportation infrastructure, because you need pipelines, you need etc.
So you think the time is now to invest,
Absolutely.
to act?
Absolutely. And
you have the money?
You know why?
You have the money?
We all have the money. You know, it's not just a unilateral thing, because it's in the interest of Croatia. But I tell you why it is time to act now. When you read the specialized media on renewables, and it is, I would say, fantastic. If you read the figures of investments which are being made now, it is billions and billions and billions, and both in the installation of renewables, production of renewables, but also production of green hydrogen and transportation of green hydrogen. A huge part of this investment will go into this transportation infrastructure, which is a precondition for the creation of something like a European market space for renewables. And Croatia has a huge potential compared to its own needs. As far as I know, there is no kind of exhaustive study, but the figures I know is 6, 7, 8 times higher than its own need, right? This, compared to Spain, for instance, this still is relatively small. So if Croatia waits another 6, 7, 8 years, then there will be a hydrogen bubble, the market will be saturated, and no one will ask Croatia anymore for its green hydrogen or for its potential. It'll be too late. So
have you talked about that with Croatian politicians?
More than once. And
the response mixed?
I must say that I'm pretty encouraged by recent responses.
So this is a big area of possible
again,
cooperation.
If I may insist, it is very important to say that I'm not talking about Croatia's own decarbonization and energy transition.
No, you're just talking
I'm talking about using this extra potential to, if you want, very bluntly, to make money. This is a huge opportunity. We want to diversify our sources. I think that Croatia will be welcome. It's a long way to go because of all the investment that needs to be made, but it's now to do it, and not in 10 years.
No, exactly. So it's a new area where Croatia must act now, you think?
We must act now. I think that, you know, I'm making a huge effort to establish...
Yeah, because you need it as well. How will you get out of a recession? And when? By
effort, innovation, and when, I can't tell you, obviously, but you know, there's lots of talk, and first and foremost in Germany itself, about the state of affairs and where our economy is. But at the same time, I cannot but notice, just as a citizen, that this debate has produced pretty bold measures adopted by the government recently. A plan with 10 points, which focuses on one issue which is critical, which is speeding up dramatically energy transition, right? And the other one, investing even more into what actually is the strength of our economy, which is innovation and productivity. And I'm an optimistic person. I think that the biggest strength of our economy has always been adapting to new circumstances and overcoming challenges and being better at the end than we were before. And this is what it is about.
What will happen if it turns out that Ukraine is behind the explosions on the pipeline, Nord Stream pipeline?
Can't tell you. I'm not taking these decisions, but I can kind of guess what would be. It would leave a bitter aftertaste, but wouldn't change the fact that it is in our vital interest to support Ukraine in their very difficult task to defend themselves, because we still believe that they are defending Europe and our sovereignty. We believe that Ukraine's defeat wouldn't be the end.
What will happen with Russia after the war? Russia is a crystal ball. Crystal ball.
No, really hard to say. But it is one thing is I mean, no, for the time being, it's hard to predict where this war is going and how it will end.
Will you deliver the Taurus missiles to Germany, to Ukraine?
I have to ask the chancellor. But you know, one thing you said at the beginning, that we have been under criticism
for being at the beginning very slow to
yes,
deliver.
But the same, you know, with this specific piece of armaments, don't forget that something comparable is not being delivered by the Americans as well, for basically the same reasons. And what is also important to say, after all, is we are, with, you know, by far the second largest supporter of Ukraine, with 24 billion euros by now in armaments, in direct payments, and humanitarian assistance. So, and the Chancellor has said that we are going to support Ukraine as long as it takes, and I buy his words, because you know, if you see the turn in the direction which his party actually took, it's dramatic, and we talk about Zeitenwende, you know, changes of time, and we are very serious about this, because we're really convinced that and we believe actually that we have learned from past mistakes.
Do you think that one thing is when a politician says we will support a country, do you think that the citizens are a little bit tired of the war, or of the consequences of the war?
Well, for the time being,
kind of fatigue, yeah.
There's always a risk for this to happen, but as far as I know, according to latest polls, still a very clear majority of Germans do support this. Interesting.
Germany is introducing border checks on the...
On which?
On the border of Poland, right?
Yeah, we always have. We always had in the past couple of years, you know, this kind of floating border controls, which is not necessarily on the border, but sometimes behind the border. Well,
which is semantics, basically.
No, it's not semantics if you drive through the border. But let's leave it aside. I mean, what we need to talk about actually is migration, which is. You know, the elephant in the room sometimes. Huge issue. We're having a very heated debate now in Germany, because you know, in absolute terms, we have the biggest number of asylum seekers in absolute terms, and there are 3 countries which have per capita more. Austria, I think it was Austria, Cyprus, and maybe Greece, but the truth is that they just continue the journey. So if we look at the caseload as such of migrants, we carry by far the heaviest burden, plus 1 million refugees from Ukraine. It's a big issue, but at the same time, this is.
But there is
we believe I think that there is always a risk of this becoming an issue of populistic declarations. But it's nothing that goes away. Number one, just like this, you can't simply stop migration. Number one. Number two, we have to acknowledge that we need to continue being open societies, and be it only for the mere reason that we are aging societies, and that our economic model depends on labor force, which is becoming scarcer and scarcer. But last and most important point, maybe I think that my government very clearly feels profoundly and unequivocally committed to the fundamental human right to asylum. So what we need to do is finding a balance between upholding this fundamental right. There is no such thing as just closing borders, right? And at the same time, having a more rational approach to migration, in the sense that we actually need people, right?
Yeah, the whole Europe needs people. We are aging, but for example,
as a European Union, we need solidarity. We don't have solidarity.
We haven't had solidarity when it comes to migrants from the beginning of the crisis. Some countries locked up. And,
yes, and we're not going to name names. I hope.
But we all know which countries are refusing to accept these kind of migrants. On the other hand, migrants don't want to stay, for example, in Croatia, just a transit country. Your country, Germany, has a very strong pulling power. It's very attractive to them. But on one hand, can we just, for example, I think your minister, one of your ministers went to India to look for high-skilled workers. Can we handpick whom we need?
We can not when it comes to refugees. You can't. If a person comes to the border.
With refugees, it's one thing.
Yes.
With migrants,
otherwise we can, of course. I mean, the United States, every country that has actually founded its economic model on a pro-migration policy have done it. That's
do we
not
need
such
more
a dramatic thing to
legal
do.
ways or easier legal ways to get people to come to your
Clear answer. But these are obviously selective ways of promoting migration according to our needs. And I think that they have to be distinguished very clearly from the refugee issue, right?
Those are two separate issues.
You can say if people come to the border and ask for asylum or claim that they need protection, international protection. You can say, what is your profession? Maybe we will offer you.
No, when it's an asylum seeker, then it's an international obligation to shelter, to give protection.
And we shouldn't question it.
Shouldn't question it. Okay, let's just drop to the neighborhood, to Bosnia and Herzegovina. You said you support Bosnia's. Do you see Bosnia and Herzegovina as a functioning state?
Do I have to answer this question?
Okay, then I know the answer.
I mean, it is. I've lived there, and I must also say that Bosnia is very close to my heart and to my family's heart. We really appreciate it. People there, their openness and their tolerance. But when you look at, just understanding how Bosnia functions in terms of its institutionality, this takes a postdoc degree.
At least, and those smart boards we see in movies.
Which in itself, points at, I'm being very diplomatic and careful, points at a possible deficit of a structural nature. Plus, very good wording. Plus, honestly, on top of this, Bosnia is, pretty much a captured society and a captured state.
In which sense, captured?
You know what we mean when we say this. Political elites who control and exploit a society and the state.
Do you see, you were actually commended, praised by by Blinken for introducing sanctions for Republika Srpska and Dodik.
Not really sanctions. We stopped cooperation, which is a different thing. We can't, as a member state of the European Union, we cannot unilaterally do it. But we stopped.
Would you like to see Dodik, I wouldn't say removed or, leave?
Just leave, and there's a fair and democratic election and the majority of people.
But would you like to see somebody else?
We never comment on elections. We never express our preferences when it comes to elections.
Okay. Do you think that Bosnia and Herzegovina can advance towards the EU with a High Commissioner being a protectorate in a way?
We have been, Germany has been, together with a few other member states, we have been convinced for a long time that a country that aspires to become a member of the European Union must be fully sovereign and able to, to travel along this long journey of effort and reforms by itself. Because if not, these reforms are not going to be sustainable, right? So for a long time we were not so fond of this institution. We thought it's outdated. It doesn't have it can't be the reality of of a state that wants to be a member of the European Union. But I would put it like this: we are kind of in two minds, because at the same time we see that Bosnian institutionality is being directly challenged in a way we've never seen before. And this makes it very difficult to advocate the abolition of the High Representative. And this has nothing to do with the fact that he's a German citizen, because he is a UN official.
He's just your namesake. That's what I was going to say. How do you see the attacks on him?
Absurd.
Absurd.
Yes.
Right. And
should I say this? My mother tongue is Spanish, and in Spanish we call this kind of eruptions. We call them, the strampling of a drowning person. This kind of wild waving. I really wonder what actually motivated Milorad Dodik to go down this avenue, because I would tend to believe that this is a pretty risky one.
And finally, the position that Zagreb has towards Bosnia and Herzegovina, how do you see that?
I know that in Bosnia, many people blame Croatia, or actually put Croatia in the same basket as Serbia, which I think has no...
Do you think it's fair? It comes from...
No. Certainly not. And there are many reasons. But these are issues which are subject of bilateral talks and negotiations. So I wouldn't really like to comment here in public on these issues. But maybe one thing, and this is very much my personal opinion, I think it is a legitimate kind of move from the Croatian side to try to protect the interests and the well-being of Croatian citizens, actually, in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
But Croatia has the obligation as well.
Yes, but this is a self-imposed obligation. This is nothing.
Sure. What does the Dayton Agreement say?
It's a guarantor state, like others, right? But I believe that this is a legitimate preoccupation. Now there is, very well that in the European Union there are many who believe that certain things should be done in a different manner. I would always advocate for more dialogue, also in and with Zagreb, and I think that everyone needs to listen, because Croatia is more exposed and more affected, not only by things happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also in the entire region. There are many other member states, so I think it's a matter of respect that we listen. Now, whether we agree on everything, this is a different thing, if I may.
On that note, thank you very much. We'll finish this conversation. If you have anything more to add?
I don't think so. Just to thank you for this actually very open conversation, and to your viewers, just to say, you are so privileged to live in this country.
Thank you, hvala vam, dankeschön.
Nema na čemu, i drugi put, ako može.
Dragi gledatelji, puno pozdrava, ovo je bila još jedna emisija Večernjeg TV-a.